The budget isn't only driven by the dictates of the Department of Finance, though. The EU and the Houses of the Oireachtas play a huge role in the process.
Some of our favourite dull press moments involved groups of tourists shouting as journalists tried to deliver their news reports, but it looks like the roar of the Viking Splash Tours are soon to be silenced as the well-known company becomes one of the latest business victims of the pandemic. Joining us now is Des Rogers, a director and owner of Viking Splash Tours. Des, I'm sure it's been a very difficult time for you since March. You haven't been able to do any tours, but in a way you've become a victim of circumstance.
Good morning, Richard. We have, it's no surprise that the sector has been decimated by the COVID situation, and we were an early casualty in that we shut down just about to get into our season. We shut down on March the 13th and put on the green shirt like hundreds of others, thousands of other people, and we haven't done a tour since.
And again, a lot of the focus has been on restaurants and hotels, but tourism was the lifeblood of the business because you would have had visitors to Dublin as well as international tourists and a record year in 2019.
Absolutely. And our mix of customers, you know, we would have a strong indigenous support from Dubliners and from Irish people generally. But, you know, in the summertime, probably more than 60% of our business would be tourists and visitors into town, whether they were brought on the tour by their Irish relations or not. You know, it was an important part of our business, but they vanished overnight.
And at what point did you decide we're not going to come back? I'm going to have to just close it down.
Well, we were putting off the inevitable. Firstly, we were kind of relying on what we thought might come out of government supports, which is probably worth a programme on its own. But it became really apparent to us that when you apply for any bank loan or, you know, any finance support at all, the first question you get asked is, well, when are you going to reopen? And if you can't answer that question to either them or yourself, it puts your whole business model in jeopardy. Meanwhile, of course, you're accumulating costs because your fixed costs don't go away. Your rent still appears, your security cameras, your stock is still there looking at you. It may be paid, may be unpaid. You've got commitments going forward for your season that you haven't been able to make, and you know, you then have to consider as a director, you've fiduciary duties, and it doesn't take long that you actually need to seek professional advice. And we, as a board, made that decision to seek professional advice, and I'd say that happened around July, August. And the professional advice we sought was from a firm of insolvency practitioners in Dublin, McStay Luby. And they, you know, pretty quickly, having got our information, etc., came to the conclusion that the only course of action we can do in light of the circumstances we find ourselves in, albeit not of our making, is that you have to consider liquidation and winding up the company.
You've been involved with the business for 20 years. Has this been...
We have been as owners 20 years, but I've been in business, like I'm 67 now, so I've been in business 40 odd years, and I had some you know, decent successes. So the whole business world is not, it hasn't been an issue for me.
But it's not easy
in this case
to let something like this go.
It's been absolutely trying.
Has it been very upsetting?
It's been there are different shades to the upset. You're very upset for your employees, because as an owner, you have a responsibility to them. You're like their father. You're directing them, and as you are directing the company. The decisions you make have a material impact on their lives. And lucky, the one stroke of genius that the government did put in place was the COVID scheme. Otherwise, I think there could have been anarchy on the streets. But personally, you see your pension fund vaporise. That's a difficulty, obviously. I'm lucky my house is mortgage free, so in that case, you know, I'm not as stressed about that personally. But I'm very disappointed that the vision that we have for the business and the resources and monies and borrowings, etc., that we put into the business, which has been quite successful, and then we've invested our profits into the future, which is new technology, as every business should do, because a business cannot stand still. And we've got the new equipment, the new version, the next generation of the amphibious vehicle sitting on our shop floor, having been through its design and build and certification, and we can't put it into play.
So what will happen with the trucks that are there? The trucks themselves are World War II amphibious
In
trucks.
fact, one of the regs, our most recent one, is 44D21.
44D.
Yeah.
Right.
So that'll give you, they're originals of the species,
they're still
and they
going.
demand a lot of TLC, Richard.
Will you get a buyer for a part of the liquidation? I presume they will be sold, or the business will be
There's
sold.
no
of the
commercial
assets.
value in them because you cannot get them certified in a new location. They have to be grandfathered in, and okay, they're in Dublin and they have been a feature of the city, so we're not going to get thrown out of Dublin. But if you were to go to Cork, you'd have a new regulation imposed on you, and it would be new equipment, and then you have to meet the European rules, and that's a different kettle of fish.
And any potential buyer would have to take all of that into account.
Yeah, he could not presume to get them in operation in his city, no matter where it was in Europe.
So what
So
about
they're
the
virtually
possibility?
valueless in that, they're worthless in that
Well,
sense.
you have developed a newer one. Is there a possibility that when all of this passes by, you could go back into doing a new version of the tours, a new company, a new business with
The
the new
only
tech?
way, Richard, to be honest, the only way we would go back is if we retired the old fleet and brought in the new fleet. And we have that technology. We own the rights. We patented it. We built it ourselves. We're absolutely, dare I say it, experts with a small e in our business. So we know the technology, and we have a version 1 sitting on our floor that's been through the certification process. So we have something to demonstrate that we can do this. And we have 2 under construction for the UK market, sitting on someone else's shop floor, 80% complete.
Well, hopefully you will be able to make a return in a slightly different guise or whatever it might be. We have a text in, someone saying, very sad to hear Viking Splash Tours on at the Business RTE talking about liquidation, but the very best of luck with the future. Des Rogers of Viking Splash Tours, thank you very much for joining
Thanks,
us
Richard.
on the programme.
You're very welcome.